Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the second episode on the season on the farm. I am more than excited to be sharing this episode in specific because it was such a deep, meaningful, and touching conversation that I've had with Imtithal, who will be sharing her experience in psychosis and will be sharing with all of us as well some information, some insights, and some really interesting and really beautiful connections that she has made in this journey. So, before we jump into the episode, I would love for you to remember that this is not personal or medical advice, and that in no way, shape, or form are we romanticizing or encouraging psychosis in this episode. However, we are definitely looking at it from more of a humanistic and personal lens rather than just a medical and psychiatric lens. So please do take care of yourself in case this episode was triggering in any shape or form. Also, this might not be the best fit for you right now. So make sure to take care of yourself while you listen to this. And if this might be too graphic or this might be triggering for you, then just feel free not to engage in this episode and to hopefully, inshallah, listen to the rest of the episodes that we're posting. So without further ado, let's get started. عليكم السلام نورة كيف حالك؟ I'm doing well, alhamdulillah. We're still on this farm, and today is, I think for me, is one of the exciting days as the program is ending and we're wrapping up. And we're going to have a very exciting conversation that I'm sure it's going to land in different ways to different people. But I want to preface this conversation by just saying that what we're going to talk about today is just a conversation that we're having organically. This is not like scripted or prepped. Besides the conversation that we've been having on the side about it. And my big disclaimer for this conversation is to take care of yourself whenever you're listening and you feel like you need to maybe stop, maybe not listen. Just take care of yourself in whatever way if this conversation is triggering for you. And Imtithal, I think you have as well a bunch of disclaimers before you.
But yeah, considering the topic, which can be very sensitive for some people, just to take care of yourself in terms of, this is not medical advice. This is based on my, specialty, which is transpersonal psychology, and being a student of tasawwuf, Sufism for years. I'm confident about certain things, but sometimes we do need the help of a psychiatrist.
Absolutely. And so maybe this is a good opportunity to tell us a bit more about yourself and like your background, just very briefly.
Sure, yeah. So you're meeting me at a point where I am, trying to specialize as an Islamic psychologist. My background is transpersonal psychology, which is really the intersection of mental health and the spiritual and states of consciousness, and dealing with mental health beyond the ego. I also, I'm also interested in psychedelic therapy and psychedelic integration, which is really a huge part of transpersonal psychology, and really complex trauma and how to approach and heal that from, different modalities. And hence why I know a little bit too much about psychosis because I went through it myself a few times.
Is this something you're maybe open to sharing a bit more about?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, how much, like, of course, as much as you feel like you want to put out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did write about it. I did an
Hmm.
interview about it. I openly disclose depending on how it supports my clients. I think the reason why there's a lot of, you know, misunderstanding around psychosis is that people are not talking about it enough. So I'd like to
Mm,
dispel the shame around that.
mm, mm, mm.
Obviously, there are certain details that are not even necessary for me to share, but I'm sharing in the way that it can support others, I hope.
Amazing. And I'm gonna link, inshallah, in the show notes, the article and like the anything that would be useful.
Thank you.
So, I mean, we were thinking about going through it in a way of like, what is psychosis? What
Mhm.
happens? All of that. So, um, I think if that's a good place to start, we can go there.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how which angle are we looking at it. But psychosis is mainly this extreme state of psychological fragmentation that is due to fear that cannot be reconciled. And that fear usually arises when someone has two contradictory ideas in their mind that they can't reconcile. And most of the
Mm,
time, yeah, most of the time it's, good versus evil. Am I good? Am I bad? What I went through, was it good? Was it bad? Is the world good? Is the world bad? Who is, God versus Satan? And for some reason, you know, most psychotic breaks have that religious theme, even
mm,
if the person is not. So that,
mm,
and this is where the word transpersonal comes in. It's something that transcends the personal in
uh,
that way. Yeah. Yeah. And from a psychiatric lens, it is just someone splitting from consensus reality.
oh, I see.
Yeah. Yeah. And usually defined by the word hallucinations, which I don't like it. I don't like that
Yeah,
word.
yeah.
Mm.
Well, I think just the way you described it right now feels very much gentle and less aggressive than
Mm.
the descriptions in the DSM or like the ICD. And I appreciate the way you just described it. And if we want to maybe and I think that would be useful as well if we want to know a bit more about how your experience maybe brought you a bit back to your faith.
Yeah. Mm. You know, it was a bit of a journey, but I think the first time, I went to Peru in summer of 2018, um, and I had no idea what I was signing up for. I thought that I'm going to go and have this sort of sacred ritual and, heal a thing or two.
Mm,
But, I went and clearly, I see it now as there was there was an invitation, like it was a divine invitation. And, I did this ayahuasca, and it revealed so much, difficult personal material due to what I went through in childhood and, lots of trauma and whatnot, even religious trauma, really, only to encounter this very intense mystical opening in which, the entire Amazon and the trees and, spirit of the trees, spirit of the um, animals of the
mm,
Amazon. And essentially, I wasn't there anymore, and my friends who were with me and the shaman were not there, and everything was in a complete state of sujud over and over again. And the medicine was very clear with me. It's like, oh, you've been calling yourself a Muslim, really, you know nothing
oh
about it.
wow. Yeah.
And my understanding was immediately is that I was not surrendering. It was not, which is still a challenge,
Yeah.
but it was very revealing. And that's when I knew, at that moment, I knew that this is way bigger
Mm,
than just a hallucination.
yeah.
I feel like that word defiles an experience like that. Really,
Mm-mm.
yeah.
And we were having like a side conversation earlier about how the community sometimes does not really know what to do with the
Mhm, yeah,
person when they have a psychotic episode
absolutely,
and
yeah.
that they kind of freak out.
Mhm,
And there's so much stigma just attached to it.
mhm,
And
mhm, mhm,
I'm not judging anyone for the way they're dealing with it, but
mhm, mhm.
I'm just saying what is usually common.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and I want to go back to you. How was it for you?
Well, I'm sorry to say, but I do I do judge those people depending on my mood of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
Some days I have more compassion, I'm only human, but I get it. It is terrifying. It is scary, right? But the thing is, like if the person going through it is in that state of fear and they're met by more fear, then their fear only increases and their condition gets worse, right? Someone in that state, all they need is safety and to feel loved.
Mm,
Now, are all psychotic experiences similar or no? Because
mm,
some of them are, and depending on if someone is if it's alcohol related, or if it is usually like alcohol and weed in these states are usually more on the anxiety side of things and paranoia and tend to go on the dark side. I don't think that that's not considered spiritual, but it's more contractive,
mm,
right? And, depending on the person, may get violent. Because what is it that people fear? That someone will get violent, someone will hurt someone,
mm.
and right. So, or like enter into like this murderous state,
Yeah, I think
right?
that's the most common.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I bet you anything, most of the people who murder murder in cold blood and are not in a state of fear and psychosis, right?
Mm.
This is a ridiculous stigma that's out there.
Yeah.
Truly. There's that. And then, there is states that are not like Islam doesn't even consider psychotic. There's the majdoub state. It's like a divine magnetic pull by Allah, which is really how my experiences were.
Mm-mm-mm.
And the invitation is if we are to ride out these expanded states of consciousness, which they are, even when they're contractive, they're still more expanded than consensus reality, which is very limited, really. This me right now talking is way limited than that state, to be honest. Is the invitation for a soul to heal and to reconcile and to reach a state of homeostasis, right? Because what is the goal of balanced mental health? It's liberating our soul, right? If we're gonna look at it from a
Mm.
modern, but Islam, religion, what is it? It's meaning, it's liberation, right? So sometimes if the soul isn't constricted or too traumatized, or you know, in some cases the soul is under influence of I don't know, jinn, lower entities, curses, sihr, all of those things,
Mm.
it's gonna take a strong shove to unshackle that.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm. I'm taking a breath in, and um, I know that all of these, like all of what you just mentioned right now, even though we live our day to day life, like living in a way where we are just present here in this world and where our feet are taking us. But I often hear from people about their best experiences being those that are not attached to the just to this reality, whether it was a dream they've had, or like this experience they had, or a spiritual awakening they've had. And I know that this can be maybe controversial in the scientific world, or
Mhm.
unmeasurable, or can be considered as ridiculous in some places.
Mhm,
But I
mhm.
think it's also important to look at like how we call in Islam ruh, which is the soul, that does not really have any legitimate or like we can't go DNA our soul out. That's not something that we do, or X-ray it out. So there is this immaterial reality to it, and this is a conversations that is really difficult to have in the field of psychology. But I think it's happening more and more often right now in the modern way of the practicing, whether
Yeah.
indigenous practices, in several, as you said, even your background.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, so where are you at right now?
I like what you so that's important that you point that out, right? That, science kinda shrinks away from that. What we need to kinda remind ourselves that Western science as it stands, how old is it? 200, 300, 400, what, 500 years, right? And it's so arrogant.
Hmm.
It is so arrogant, and it thinks that it knows everything compared to all these traditions, including the science that was at the height of the Islamic civilization,
Hmm.
which integrated the sacred and divinity, right? And so in many ways there modern science now is kind of discovering what the mystics already knew, what, the indigenous folk has already like have known. And I'm not saying that we we remove modern science. I think that modern science would serve us better if it integrated the soul, and one of the things that unfortunately modernist Muslims do with that, the question of ruh, is they go to the Quran, "قُلِ الروح من أمر ربي," and then case closed. Not true. That is
Hmm.
actually not true. And I take that from one of my teachers who is really like way advanced. And the idea is that there are certain people that understand the ruh. We will never grasp it. That's a fact. But there are people that have systematized different states of consciousness and what those means. Like what I just said about the majdoub, right? And from an Islamic perspective, like in bil'ammi, like in mainstream Arabic, it's like al majdoub, and the majnoon. Actually, the majnoon may have access to areas of human consciousness that the so-called aqil will never have, right? I mean, just look at our world.
Yeah.
What's, you know what I mean? And then like this, you just said it. People have had the most, shift in their life in it from a dream or a conversation with a friend looking at nature or falling in love. How about
Hmm.
that?
Yeah.
That is a psychedelic state in some ways,
Uh-huh.
right? All of those things create more meaning than the
Uh,
drudgery of what we call modern life.
hmm. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, I can't not agree. And I know that this could be a difficult pill, not necessarily just pill, but it can be something difficult as well to swallow,
Sure.
comprehend. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes I find my own resistance with it, with all of this. And sometimes Allah humbles me with my experiences that I have,
Mm.
that kind of
Yeah,
put
yeah.
me in place as well. I'm mindful of having whether people or patients or just folks who are listening to this and might have had an experience with a psychotic episode or uh, might be having someone in their house who had this experience. So I would love for maybe for you to have your 2 cents on what would you like or what would have been most beneficial at that point.
Yeah, I wanna kind of not romanticize psychosis.
Yeah,
It's
please.
it's a mess, right? Like, um, yes, I've had the mystical openings, but I've also had the psychotic states. Both sent me to the hospital, right? Like, I was there for a year almost.
In and out or
No, no, like, I would say in and out in the beginning of it, but the last 7 months of that year was consistently in the hospital. And what happens is after a psychotic break, if there's no proper support, in fact, me saying psychotic break is unfair, right? Like it was like a emergency state, a spiritual
mm,
emergency state, as the transpersonal psychologists would call it, is that you come back to so-called consensus reality, and then if you don't have the support, um, suicide, right? Like suicidality comes up. And there are people who have taken their lives after such intense states. And I just want to name too that these states can occur not just from like, psychedelic induced or drug induced, or sometimes it's just stress.
mm,
Sometimes it's genetics. Sometimes it's schizophrenia, right? And even schizophrenia, that's a separate conversation. I don't
mm,
think we have enough time. Like
mm,
there are
mm.
many theories around that. You know, these are what indigenous cultures would call them, the shamans, the medicine people,
Yeah.
the people that can travel between two worlds, right? I mean, it's very hard, like certain things people can't grasp, but like I used to see jinn when I was a kid, and now it kind of makes sense to me. Okay, some people sense things and see things, and it's not a fun thing. It's meant to be a thing that, or a gift that, someone can use to help in healing or
Mhm.
understanding or creating meaning. Anyway, I don't wanna skip the part where you said about helping families.
Or
Um,
folks themselves.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
what you said really resonates so much that no, I don't wanna romanticize it.
romanticize, yeah,
It's a mess.
it's a mess. Yeah, for someone that feels like they may be kinda at the edge of losing their mind, I wanna say that you're not losing your mind, you know? Find your safe people, and if you don't have safe people, it's okay to go to the hospital. The idea is to just come back into your body and try to, it's okay. This is when you need to go back to consensus reality, go back to the boring, take care of your body, healthy food, sleep. But it's really important to have safe people. That one. I don't know, like community,
Mm,
and a lot of us are struggling with that. It's
yeah.
very important. And, with folks that have, family members going through that.
But can I say for a
Yeah,
second on
sure.
this one,
Yeah, yeah.
before we move?
Mhm.
So are there any like common, let's say, early signs that you notice that somebody like, I mean, if you're on this episode, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you could just be interested, or maybe you're concerned, or
Yeah. Yeah.
not sure what.
Yeah, it's really depends on the type of the altered state of consciousness. But, telltale signs is if someone is behaving in a way that's not themselves, right? Like fear, it's like someone raises the volume on the fear and the paranoia and connecting dots, which, like the birds are just flying in front of us here, a flock, connecting dots that are not there. Although I find that, once someone comes back and they heal, they go back and they look at the dots and it's like, it kind of makes sense why I connected them that way,
Uh,
right? But at that moment, if it's kind of this feeling, this your energy is being like almost like like you feel like your energy is leaving your body, right? It's a extreme state of dissociation to find something that brings you back into your body. And with family members, if someone is really talking about really big archetypal topics or big themes, not to like religious content or um like messiah type, like I
mm,
found it, I found It's usually someone really finding some truth for sure, but again, it's like someone raising the volume,
Yeah.
right? Like someone that says, "I am a prophet." Then maybe if we sit down and ask them, we'll find out that they went through a life where they were not seen, or they feel like there are people that they love that are in trouble, and they just want to help them. But then that's the only way for them to feel empowered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So compassion, lots of compassion. Yeah. Yeah.
Just knowing the human behind it, like not just knowing oh, this person is thinking they're a prophet. This is a crisis.
It's a crisis. They're crazy. Oh my God, look what's happening to this person. They think they're a prophet. Oh my God. Like, let's get them, shove them into the psychiatric ward. Yeah, it can be a harsh world sometimes. And the worst is when people who go through it and are abandoned by family and friends.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, that happens a lot.
yeah, of course. And yeah, I can imagine we don't know how to deal with this. I mean, there's no manual for it, basically. But there's also just the remembrance of that this is my friend, this is my daughter, this is my
Hmm.
brother. And everyone's like prone. That's
Hmm.
what I'm
That's the thing. And, like, alhamdulillah, I mean, I'm blessed, first of all, to have the resources. Like, like in the hospital, at points, I was even challenging the psychiatrists. Didn't know what to do with me. And I have colleagues who supported me and friends. And even though some family members couldn't understand and kind of left my life at that time, you know, which is a very hard scar to heal from and to hold.
Hmm.
Um, there are some people that end up in the streets and right back to the addiction that they were trying to leave. So the system is not made for people to heal,
Yeah.
Nora. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty flawed system. And it just takes me back to the ihsan that where it was made in early Maristans
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and like the care that used to be given to the person as the
Mhm.
person. Even
Mhm.
those who are going into extreme states, they are seen as people who need a fresh pair of
Mhm.
clothes and
Mhm.
like a small sum of money to start their lives back to society without
Exactly.
feeling there.
Exactly. And there's a certain ethos too that we're missing, is that what we consider quote unquote psychosis, a lot of the awliya used to go through that, right? Like, there are many, many that have like these very intense states. It's even in Christianity, in other traditions, the mystics and the saints, they have these intense experiences of God. And, and the telltale signs is that they come back with wisdom,
Yeah.
right? That kind of helps others. That's what is the defining factor. Yeah. You were saying about how people not understanding and
And if we want to bridge in maybe a bit of your relationship with Allah and with your tradition, was that helpful for you? I mean, in the healing process?
my
And
God,
yeah.
yeah, for sure. Like, I think the thing that really would throw me off is when I would go into the doubt,
Mm,
right? But when I'm like really in my centered in my heart, I see it as it was an invitation from the divine and to kind of show me who I am,
mm.
really, minus my trauma. And that was overwhelming. It's like, here you are, an expression of Allah. So now how are you going to integrate that in your day to day, right? How can you move it with love despite all this pain? Have not figured it out yet.
Yeah.
Still working on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I know we're almost out of time. We still have a few more minutes, but I think that having this conversation, even for me, is just very eye opening and is important. Not necessarily, we're not encouraging. I mean, psychosis by any way or form,
Yeah.
but I think we're a bit kind of trying to depathologize so much what
Yeah.
people go through and make
Absolutely.
them
Yeah.
labeled.
Yeah. I think kind of in closing, I think psychosis can be and is a spiritual awakening.
Hmm. Since we have like a few more minutes, can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, I feel like there is way more, like many things I've said that could go a lot could be said about it, but think about it like this, right? Like if when you're trying to gather more information, right? You have to open a book, right? You open it. So if your consciousness is opened and information is revealed to you, whether it's from your unconscious or from the unseen, which is really, it's kind of a mix of both that happens, right? Then that is sahu. That's your awakening, right? In that state, though, you are in a state of kind of, intoxication when you're in it, right? But it could be a state of awakening,
Mm.
like when that material is integrated and made
Yeah.
sense of, right? It could be an awakening. So it's an awakening moment, and then what you do with it defines. It really can be enlightenment, to be honest.
So what you're saying is that this could be awakening, and then after it, when this
Yeah.
episode is over,
Yeah.
kind of, or when integration is happening,
Yeah.
and you're carrying on your life and you're
Yeah.
back to what you're doing, this
Yeah.
can be like a full new pathway for you.
Exactly. I think my hesitancy there is because we have an idea about awakening as though it's this like, woohoo. Awakening is messy.
Mm.
It's a messy, messy, messy process, spiritual awakening. So I would argue that it is an awakening, even if someone doesn't know how to integrate it. Many people go through these big awakenings and realizations and go right back to the same mistakes that they were doing for whatever reason. So, yeah.
And I know, like, I mean, probably maybe if you're a psychiatrist, maybe if you're a practitioner, maybe if you're a scientist and you're listening to this and you're like, oh, but like this is not how it's described, or this is um kind of like, no,
I don't
this
disagree with them, actually.
the
Yeah.
how it's described.
I don't disagree with the scientist, or like there is a physical manifestation and an explanation to it. I think that medications can help calm the symptoms, right? Also, I think excessive medications can completely dampen the process of the reaching that homeostasis, of reaching a conclusion of psychosis. And this is not my opinion. This is totally from Jungian psychology and transpersonal psychology.
Mm.
That the psyche is trying to reach a resolution. So it propels these intense experiences so that you can reach a resolution. So there is the neurobiological explanation, there is the transpersonal explanation, there is the religious, different traditional mystical explanations. I think yes, 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 and yes. The problem is that the scientist refuses to see any other perspective, which is
Yeah.
arrogant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think this is really gold. Like I think wrapping up here of knowing that you're not rejecting
Nope,
neither,
not at all.
and of course you're gonna need support, of course you're gonna need meds, of course you're gonna need all of that, and there's a story.
There's a story, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a human story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is. Yeah, I see. Wow, it's a lot to chew on. It's a lot.
Thank
I
you,
think,
Noura.
yeah, of course. I mean, I think we're leaving people with food for thought for quite some time, and I really appreciate this conversation.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I didn't really expect it to go this way, and I think it went exactly like how it's supposed to. So I'm grateful for this. Thank you for having me.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna end it here, and I'm gonna link any of whatever you want me to link in case your handles, if somebody wants to reach out.
For sure.
The article, we could do that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Yeah.